Hello, my name is August Modiga, and I'm a third-year international student from South Africa who majors in philosophy, politics, and economics in the College of Arts and Sciences here at Drexel University. As a pathway to SuperNova scholar, over the past winter quarter, I, along with my colleague Samantha Romeo, have been mentored by Dr. Jennifer Nazer. And my area of interest and research that I conducted was specifically about how artificial intelligence will impact Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, if you take a closer look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you will find one common denominator, and that is human psychology. Think about it. Self-actualization, self-esteem, love and belonging. All of these things have a lot to do with human psychology and human behavior. Now, I will be the first to admit that I do not know in great depths and great details about what artificial intelligence actually is. However, I think the simplest way to define it is that it is a world that is driven by technology. The COVID-19 pandemic presented a perfect opportunity, at least from a scientific standpoint, to analyze these two main concepts: human behavior and a world that is heavily reliant and dependent on technology. So we did that. We did the following. We looked at what were the biggest sociological issues at the height of the pandemic. And I kid you not, it was not race, it was not even gender, it was not education, it was not even economic impacts or economic differences or disparities. It was politics, for obvious reasons. Many people felt the need to more visibly identify with their political ideologies. So we, as approaching this from a scientific perspective, said, you know what, let's take advantage of this and see and hypothesize whether human beings are actually influenced by print media that is in correlation with their political ideologies. That was our hypothesis. So we looked at left-leaning states and right-leaning states separately. And then we went on to look at the most prominent newspaper publications, right? And then we even took it a step further and looked at their lifestyle coverage. We looked at the kind of messaging that were in those respective newspapers, right? And we found that left-leaning newspapers, if you looked at their lifestyle sections, you discover that their messaging was essentially COVID conscious. By that, I mean the messaging was telling people what to do while they're indoors. It had a lot to do with stuff like journaling, doing puzzles, doing board games, how to be a plant mom was one of the articles I found. So in general, the messaging that were in left-leaning newspapers was very COVID conscious. Whilst in contrast to that, right-leaning newspapers had the messaging of, they couldn't care less about a pandemic going on. The messaging was about travel destinations, food blogging. I even remember seeing UFO articles increasing, in publications at the height of the pandemic. These were the difference in the messaging of these various newspapers, separated according to their political affiliations. So we took that information and did the following. We compared that information according to the number of COVID incidences, and we found that over time, left-leaning states had lesser and lesser COVID incidences, whilst right-leaning states had more and more COVID incidences. Our hypothesis was proven correct in the United States. We decided, you know what, let's go a step further and look at internationally. We took the 5 countries that performed well, or rather reported to perform well during the COVID-19 pandemic, and contrasted that with 5 countries that did not do so well. And again, our hypothesis was correct. The countries that did well had the highest rate of COVID conscious messaging in their print media. And the antithesis of that, countries that did worse couldn't care less about a pandemic going on in their print media. So this brings me to one question. Thinking about the future, are human beings really influenced by the information they consume? Or are we the independent thinkers and doers that we would like to think that we are? And is this good or bad for a post-COVID world and a more technology reliant and technology dependent world? Is that good or bad? That's a question for us to ponder on about the future. I thank you for taking your time.